So we all want to make Roblox games, but it takes time, and after putting in all that effort, it might just flop. So I wanted to push the limits and see how fast I can make 3 Roblox games. Now you might think it's pretty easy to make an obby in 1 minute. After all, you can just place a few parts and that's an obby. So to make this more fun and interesting, I won't be making any obbies, and instead I've decided to make 3 simulators. So let's get started with the 1 minute game. Of course, I'm gonna set a timer for 1 minute, and before I even had time to think, I went into Studio and I started by making a function for the leader stats. So whenever a player joins, it's gonna create leader stats for them, so we can actually add coins to them. And I kept making mistakes while typing because I was trying to type fast. But anyways, I managed to finish it within about 30 seconds or so. And I also needed a remote event function to detect when the player clicks, and this is gonna give them coins. So with that, the server script was pretty much done, and then I had to make a client-side script to actually detect when they click with their mouse. So that's what I did, and it took about 1.5 minutes, but at least it works. So if you click anywhere on the screen, it adds a coin to the leader stats. Now that was pretty boring, so let's move on to the 10-minute game, where I'm gonna try to make it a little better by adding a map and at least a button. So let's begin by putting a part temporarily for the ground. And after that, I made an image button, which I'm actually gonna use instead of clicking anywhere on the screen. And I went into paint.net, which is the app I used to make this image for the button. I know it's pretty bad, but this is all I could make with the time I had. And then I made the local script, which is gonna detect when you click that button. So similar to the 1 minute game, I scripted the local side as well as the server script for the leader stats. But this time I had 2 things, which was wheat and coins. So when you click the button, you get wheat and you'll be able to sell them for coins. So now let's get to work on the map. I made a simple tree model and placed it all over, and I also made a selling place where you'll be able to sell your wheat. At this point there was only about 1 minute left, and I decided to make a small fountain just to add some color because the whole map was green. And this is what the final game looks like. So you can see we have wheat and coins leader stats, and if you click on the button, it should give you some wheat. And if you step on the selling part, of course, it's gonna sell that wheat and turn it into coins. And I just realized that the fountain also works as a selling place because I just duplicated the selling place to make this. So it was better than the 1 minute game, but it was still pretty horrible. So for the 100-minute game, I decided to have a plan. My idea was to make a movement simulator. So whenever you move around, every second you're gonna get 1 movement point. And whenever you jump, you'll also get a movement point. There's also gonna be food items that you can collect to get a bunch of points. So with that out of the way, let's get to work. Now I'm gonna skip the boring parts, which is basically just doing the same thing over again, which is the leader stats. So there's gonna be 2 ways to get movement points, by jumping and by moving around. And after working on that system, you can see that while I'm moving, I'm getting 1 movement point per second. And when I jump, I'll also get a movement point. And these were the core mechanics of this game. Now let's start with the map. I decided to stick to the baseplate texture because it was fairly simple and it wouldn't take much time to make things. So I started working on a tree, and then I placed them all around the map. And by the way, while I was making this, it had been around 20 minutes, which meant that I had 1 hour and 20 minutes left. So after placing the trees, I decided to make a small pond by just making parts and using a Roblox union to put a hole in the ground. But for some reason, it removed the texture and I had to put it back. And there we go. I just had to put the water and we have a proper pond. I didn't want the movement points to just be a number that increases, which is why I made it increase your speed and jump height as you get more movement points. So this is what it looks like with around 20 movement points, and it seems quite balanced to me, as you can see. Yeah, it needs some balancing. But after doing that, I wanted to add food that you can collect. So of course I started by working on the model. And at first I just made a burger and I stuck to this base plate texture style because it was fairly simple. After making this one model, as you can see they spawn around the map. But you couldn't actually collect them yet. So before that, I decided to add a tween to them just to make them look better. And then of course I had to make it so you could actually collect them. Now to make it feel like you're actually collecting it, I wanted to add a sound effect. And what better than a munch sound effect? It's kinda goofy, but it makes it more fun. Now the movement points were pretty much useless, so it was time to add rebirths. I started by making a simple frame where all the buttons are gonna go. And on the left, I'm gonna have the buttons where you can buy rebirths with movement points. And on the right, it's gonna be the Roblox version of that. So here's what the text looked like, but I obviously needed to balance out the prices. After taking some time to do that, this is what I decided on. So it's gonna be about 100 for one rebirth when you first start, and of course it'll get more expensive. But the numbers weren't formatted properly and didn't have commas in between. So I found this module script which allows me to do that. After adding a tween with sound effects and formatting the numbers properly, it looked much better. Now it was time to make some more food models. The first one I worked on was a pizza, and the second one was a square donut, which I forgot to record. But this is what they look like, and then I made them spawn around the map just like the burgers. So now you could walk around the map, find burgers, donuts, and pizzas all over, even on top of the buildings. And once you reach 100 movement points, you could rebirth. And keep doing it again until you've had enough. And by this time, it had already been 100 minutes. But I decided that I want you guys to play this game, so I decided to spend a little more time adding more things and doing a huge playtest in my Discord server. Link is in the description, by the way. So before showing you the playtest, let me show you everything that I added to the game before telling everyone to join. So first of all, we have the things you can purchase, which is the rebirths with Robux, and the second one, which was game passes. First one for ×2 movement points, and second one for ×2 speed. And I also added this road all over the map, if you didn't notice. And lastly, the leaderboards. So now let's begin the playtest. I pinged everyone in my server, which were over 3,500 people, and a few seconds later, the first person joined. And after that, they just kept coming in, and we reached about, I didn't keep count, but I would say 20 to 30 players. Now some people actually donated and even bought a game pass, so thanks to everyone who did that, I appreciate it. And thanks to everyone for joining. But before you click off of this video, I decided to reply to your chat comments because there were way too many of you and I couldn't keep up. Nuga Nuga says capybaras are my fave. Me too. I said I'm gonna put this in the video, so here you go. Nuga Nuga once again says, do a shout out to me or I'll dislike. You better like the video now. Nico also says, shout out me duck. So shout out to Nico, I guess. Sky Radio says, am I in the video? Yes, you are. So that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed, subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.